The Conjuring is directed by James Wan, who previously did Insidious right before this. And I think what he did with Insidious is he took the feedback that he got from the fans and he put everything that they liked into this one and removed everything that they didn't to give us a really good possession movie. The movie starts and we get introduced to Annabelle. She's used briefly here just to introduce the Warrens, and the opening scene with her haunting these two roommates is actually a great way to get us introduced into the Conjuring world. After this, we meet our main family that we're going to follow throughout the whole story. They just moved into a house and it's composed of the mom, the dad, and their five daughters. I don't remember all their names, but I know it's the youngest, Renesmee from Twilight, Joey King, Glasses, and oldest. They start seeing things immediately as soon as they move in. And the same day that they move in, the little girl is already showing signs of creepy child syndrome from scary movies. She goes and sits under a scary tree and she finds this toy with that plays like really creepy music and it has a mirror on it. While they're still moving in, the girls decide that they're gonna play their favorite game, which is called hide and clap, where somebody wears a blindfold and the other girls try to hide and they have to find them by just hearing their claps. Well, one of them is hiding in a closet. Joey King is the one that's looking for them, and she pushes her into the wall and she breaks it. And behind this wall is actually some stairs that go down to the cellar. They didn't know that they had a cellar when they first bought this house, so the dad goes down there to investigate. It's full of old furniture and it's all covered in bed sheets. There's an old creepy piano as well. From the very first night that they're there, they experience some cliche haunted house shenanigans. This includes the clock stopping at 3 something in the morning. It gets really cold and they all start to smell something really stinky. And their first morning there is not a good one as they wake up and the youngest goes outside to look for their dog, and unfortunately the dog has passed away. Normally I would consider animals dying a bad thing in a movie, but in this case I'm actually going to give it a gore point because it's introduced early on and it's kind of like a warning for this family to show you that this demon is not playing around at all. We go to the Warren's house and we see their demon room. They have this room that's full of demon vessels, like toys or things that a demon has latched onto before, and this includes the Annabelle doll. Back at the haunted house, it's their second night there, and Joey King and Glasses are sharing a room, but they have separate beds. Joey King's leg gets pulled and she wakes up and she starts blaming her sister. While they're arguing, the dad is downstairs and he's also experiencing some noises. There's some banging and some noises that he's just walking around in every room trying to see what's causing it. In the oldest daughter's room, Renesmee from Twilight goes in there and she's sleepwalking and she starts banging her head against the wardrobe. She goes and gets her dad and tells him, so he goes up there to help her. He stops her head from banging and then he walks her back to her room to go to sleep. The following morning, dad goes to work and the four oldest daughters go to school, leaving just the mom and the youngest child. The youngest child wants to play hide and clap with the mom, so she does play with her. She gets blindfolded and she starts looking for her daughter. As she's walking around in a house that she doesn't know yet, she starts banging herself against furniture and things like that. And she asks for the first and second clap, and that leads her into the oldest girl's room. When she walks in there, you see the wardrobe behind her, and you hear the door open, and then she kind of knows like, okay, I think she's somewhere around here. So she starts getting closer to the wardrobe, and whenever she gets close, she asks for the third clap, and you see a couple of hands come out of like from the clothes, and you see it clap. So the mom, she's like, okay, now I got her. So she walks up to the wardrobe and she starts feeling around, and she doesn't feel anything. She takes her blindfold off, and then the daughter comes up from behind her and tells her she was in a completely different room. The third night there, Joey King gets her leg pulled once again, but this time a lot harder. She wakes up and she starts to freak out and she starts to look around. Glasses wakes up to ask her what's going on, and Joey King tells her that by the door there's somebody standing. Glasses doesn't see anybody and she gets up and gets closer to the door. Joey King, again, she's like freaking out, and I do like this scene a lot because we see that Joey King is actually a good actress. I haven't seen a whole lot of her stuff, but in this movie, she does a really good job at portraying somebody that is terrified. While Glasses is standing by the door shuts on its own and they both start to scream. Both of the parents run in to see what's going on, but they see nothing there. Whenever they ask Joey King what happened, she just says that there was somebody in the room and that it told her that it wants her whole family dead. We go back to the Warrens, and they're helping a different family with some noises that they're hearing. Once they're there, they realize that it's just the pipes that are making the noises there. So they debunk the case. What I like about this scene is that it shows you that they're not fighting demons 24/7. Sometimes they actually get false cases. Back at the haunted house, the dad actually has to leave for a few days for work, leaving the girls all alone. At night, the mom is walking around the house and she hears somebody clapping, so she goes to explore thinking that it's her daughters. While she's walking around to see if it's her daughters making that noise, all the pictures on the walls fall down. She starts to pick up the items and she hears some clapping. She goes around the corner to see if the girls are playing hide and clap again late at night, and it leads her into the closet. While she's in the closet, she gets pushed down the stairs into the basement. While she's there, there's this like little bouncy ball that starts bouncing from over the furniture, and she gets freaked out, so she's running up the stairs. While she's doing this, the light bulb breaks, leaving her in the dark. When she makes it up the stairs, she can't get the door open, but she remembers that they have some matches there. Here's where we get one of the more popular scenes in the whole movie. It's the scene where she's holding the match towards the camera, and from behind her you just see a couple of hands come out and clap. I really like the scene. I just wish that it didn't have the voice. Like if it was just the hands coming out and clapping, I feel like that would have been enough to freak her out and give us a good scare. But the fact that they go and say, "Hey, want to play hide and clap?" I feel like that makes it a little bit cheesy. I just wish it was just the hands. In the same night, we see that Renesmee from Twilight is sleepwalking again, and once again she makes her way to her oldest sister's room. She goes in there and she starts banging her head against the wardrobe once again, waking up her older sister. Her older sister goes and grabs her and brings her back to bed and lays her down in the same bed that she was sleeping in. And while she's doing that, she still hears the banging coming from the wardrobe, so she goes closer to the wardrobe to see what's going on. She opens the doors and she doesn't see anybody, so she closes it again. As she's walking back, we get one of the most terrifying scenes that I've seen at this point in a long time, because it terrified me the first time I saw it. We see Renesmee from Twilight getting up and she's like freaking out. When the oldest daughter turns around, we see Bathsheba and she's like standing on top of the wardrobe, and it does like this really creepy zoom into her, and then she jumps on top of the oldest daughter. So these two scenes happen at the same time. So we have the mom banging on the door to try to escape, while at the same time we have the oldest daughter getting attacked by Bathsheba. While this is going on, the dad's just arriving back from his job and he hears everybody screaming, so he rushes into the house. He frees up the mom and they both go up to see what's going on with the oldest daughter. And when they get there, they just see her freaking out by herself with nobody on top of her. This night was the craziest one that they had so far, and they are all freaking out, so the mom goes out to look for some help. We see that the Warrens are actually giving a lecture at what it seems like a college, and the mom is there. After the lecture, she goes to the Warrens to ask for help. They tell her that they don't want to do it, but she pleads her case, and then Lorraine decides that they will go help her. As soon as the Warrens arrive to the haunted house, Lorraine sees that there is something wrong, and she tells the family that there is a dark energy that's attached themselves to them. When the family explains to the Warrens what kind of experiences they're having, Ed and Lorraine, they realize that they might be dealing with a demon here. Lorraine goes outside by the lake, and when she turns around, she sees this giant tree, and whenever her husband walks up to her, she sees some legs dangling behind him, which, with her vision, she knows that somebody has hung themselves before. She tells the family that the spirit attached to them is a very hateful spirit and that they have to be careful. The Warrens go back home to investigate why this house would have such a dark past, and what they find is truly terrifying, and it's almost like a story that could be its own movie if they ever decided to do it. They realize that this land used to be owned by a woman named Bathsheba, and she got pregnant, and the reason why she got pregnant was just to sacrifice her baby to Satan, because in the eyes of a demon, that is the ultimate insult to Jesus. And then right after she does this, she proclaims her love to Satan, and then she hangs herself. She has cursed this land in such a bad way that she possesses any woman that lives there, and she makes them kill their own children. The next day, the Warrens go back to the haunted house, and they set up a bunch of cameras all over the place because they want to get some evidence that they can take to the Vatican so they can agree to perform an exorcism on this house. While they're setting up all the cameras, we get a really great scene with music playing and everybody talking to each other, and it kind of shows you how great this cast really is, because there is no weak character here. Like, everybody from youngest to oldest is a really good actor. They set up a bunch of crosses all over the house just to antagonize the demon and make it appear so they can get some more evidence from it. The first night comes and they're ready to shoot some evidence and hoping that they find something that way they can get it to the Vatican. Unfortunately for them, the demon does not want to play tonight and they only get a couple of door slamming and that's all they get the whole night. We got this cop character that's there to help him and he's a skeptic and this doesn't help it because then he doesn't believe anything that's going on. The second night they try again and this time they actually get some really good stuff. The first thing that happens is actually to the cop that's skeptical. He's walking around the kitchen and he hears some noises coming from the porch. When he goes to investigate, he comes back inside. He sees what looks like an old maid and she's screaming, "Look what you made me do." And in a jump scare, she comes from the side of him and she's like screaming at him, "Look what you made me do." And she has some cuts on her wrist. Once again, I'm not a big fan of the entities talking. So it could have been another jump scare without the talking. Her screaming is mostly done just for the jump scare itself. She terrifies the cop after doing this, and he goes back to the rest of the team to tell them what happened. But while he's about to explain it, we see that Renesmee from Twilight starts sleepwalking once more. Ed tells them not to wake her up because they want to see what's going on, and he knows that there's something else that's going on here. She goes up the stairs and into the oldest girl's room, and while they're following her, the door slams and they're all trying to open it, but they can't get it open. Once they do get it open, they all go into the room and she's nowhere to be found. They get some UV lights to see if they can track where she was going. Once they get into the room, they see that her footprints actually lead into the wardrobe. Looking inside of it, they don't see her though. However, Ed sees that the back of the wardrobe is a piece of wood that can actually slide, and they see her right there behind it. So they get her out of there, and whenever she wakes up, she doesn't remember a thing. But Lorraine decides to go in there and see what was in there. While Lorraine is in there, she sees a rope and she starts to pull on it. And once it gets to the very end of it, there's a noose on it. I guess that rope was the same one that was used by Bathsheba to hang herself way back then. While holding the rope, Lorraine falls through the floor, taking her all the way down to the basement, which is about a 2-story fall. So the fact that she's even okay is pretty insane. While she's down there, she has her flashlight and she starts flashing to see if there's anything there. She sees yet another ghost that does the same thing that I don't like what ghosts do here, which is a ghost holding her child, and you can presume that the child is dead. And then she's like screaming at her like, "She made me do it." I don't like it when entities talk like this. Lorraine manages to get out of the basement and she reunites back with the family, but not before Bathsheba pulling on her necklace that has a picture of her daughter. She meets up with the rest of the people, and when they all get back together, we see the oldest daughter and her hair starts to move up as if somebody was pulling it, and then she just gets yanked. She starts getting dragged all over the place. They're all trying to like hold her down, but nobody seems to be able to outstrength the ghost. So the only way that they can stop it is by Lorraine getting a pair of scissors and just cutting her hair. After this, they all decide to leave. The Warrens are happy with the evidence that they managed to gather, and they're confident that they'll get the Vatican to approve the exorcism. And the family is terrified, so they decide to go to a motel room. At the Warrens' house, their daughter is being watched by their grandma. While she's sleeping, she gets waken up by Bathsheba's favorite move, which is the classic leg pull. She starts to explore the house and starts calling for her mom and dad. All she hears is some noise coming from the demon room. She goes in there and she just closes the door because she's not allowed in there. But we get to see a glimpse of the room and Annabelle's not in her glass display. She gets pulled into the next room, and whenever she turns around, she sees Bathsheba sitting in a rocking chair and she's holding Annabelle. In another terrifying scene that's shot very well, you see the daughter freaking out, and whenever she looks at Bathsheba, you would think Bathsheba would turn around and look at her and say something or do something with her face, but I like the fact that they change it up a little bit, and Bathsheba doesn't turn around, but Annabelle's head slowly starts to turn towards the little girl, freaking her out even more. She starts banging on the door, and Ed and Lorraine manage to get there right on time. When Ed opens the door, Bathsheba actually throws a chair at the little girl, but Ed manages to get her out of the way just in time. We see the outside of the hotel in which the family has gone for the night. And whenever the dad gets there, the other two daughters go and tell them that the mom has actually taken Joey King and the youngest back to the house. The dad calls the Warrens, and the Warrens tell them that the kids are in trouble and that she's going to try to kill them, so that they need to all meet up at the house. When they make it to the house, they make it right on time because the mom has a pair of scissors and she's holding the youngest child. They stop her from killing her, and then they try to leave the house. As they're trying to go through the door, the mother's skin starts to burn, and Lorraine says that the demon will not let her leave that house. They decide to take her down to the basement to tie her down. Ed decides that there is no time to wait, and they can't wait for a priest to come and do the exorcism, so he tells them that he's going to perform it himself. They put a sheet over her, and they put her in a chair, and they tie her down completely. The next few scenes are some of my favorite, and it is one of my favorite exorcism scenes in any movie. The first one being just the actual visual of seeing the mother wrapped in a sheet, tied to a chair, and everything around her shaking like an earthquake. The next one being whenever she's sitting there and you see blood coming out of her mouth and it's coming through the bed sheet. You see a tear start to appear in the bed sheet, and you see Bathsheba's face underneath. She slowly turns back into the mother, and then her head just drops, and she's sitting completely still. The next scene is her in the chair, and she starts to levitate above the ground. Whenever she's about halfway up to the ceiling, she starts to spin, and then she's sitting upside down. The legs of the chair start to hit the ceiling up and down, and then she's just dropped. The chair breaks, freeing her. Another guy that's been helping them says that he's found the youngest daughter and that she's under the kitchen wood floor. Bathsheba then escapes them, and she goes through the hole which Lorraine had fallen through before, as she makes her way up to the daughter. She gets a hold of the daughter, and while she's holding her, we see different characters in different places of the house. We see Lorraine on top, and she's where the kitchen floor is, and there's a hole there, and she's talking down to her. The husband is on another side where there's a piece of wood in between them, and then Ed is on another side with another piece of wood in between them. So there's no way of none of them to get to her. All they can do is just talk to her. They tell the husband to start talking to his wife. Ed then calls the demon by her name, Bathsheba, and she turns around and he sends her back to hell by name. This frees up the mother, but she still has to be convinced to let the daughter go. Lorraine then reaches down, and whenever she touches her head, she tells her to remember the great memories, and she thinks back of memories with her family, freeing her from the demon finally. At the end of the movie, we see the whole family come together, and they do a big family hug. I've always wondered in movies like this if it was like something real. How would the kids that got chased by their own mother react to it after in the coming days? I feel like there would be some kind of resentment there. But since it is a movie, they do just do a big group hug, and it's a happy ending. We see that Ed and Lorraine have taken the little girl's toy with the mirror and that plays the creepy music, and they're going to put it in their demon room. What I don't understand about this scene is that the whole time they're showing this, that box is attached to the little kid's ghost who I thought was harmless, and it had nothing to do with Bathsheba. Does this mean that the little ghost is now trapped in this demon room full of other more dangerous demons? The Conjuring ends with a total of 17 gore points versus only 3 bore points, giving us a total of plus 14 points total for this movie. James Wan is one of my favorite directors working at the moment. I'm excited anytime any of his movies come out. I will be going over a lot of his movies just because I'm a big fan of most of them. I'll be doing the Conjuring series first. So next Friday I will be doing the Conjuring 2. The Monday after that we'll be doing the Conjuring 3. And then after that I'll move on to the other Conjuring movies, including the Annabelle movies, the Nun movies, as well as La Llorona. This is only my 3rd video on YouTube. I want to get better at this stuff. I'm new to the editing. I'm new to filming. So I'm new to the whole thing as a whole. And I would appreciate some feedback just to see how I can improve it. If there's any ideas that you guys might have, please let me know. And let's see how far we can get together. Don't worry, Chucky. You're still my favorite doll.